Hi, everyone. Welcome to CFMA's monthly webinar series. Today, CFMA is pleased to present how the CCIFP designation has opened doors and closed deals, which is sponsored by Viewpoint. My name is Sue Madden. I'm the Education Manager here at CFMA. Glad you decided to join us. And now I'd like to take a moment to introduce our panelists and our session moderator, all who have something in common besides being CFMA members. They've earned their CCIFP designation and are here to tell you more about their journey. With us is longtime contributor to CFMA, Kimberly Holfish. She's Director of Accounting and Compliance at C. Abenizio Contractors in Sewell, New Jersey. Also with us is Jose Parra, who is Accounting and Advisory Partner at RVG and Company, joining us from Fort Lauderdale, Florida. Daniel Curick is here. He's a CFO at Cheney Enterprises in Gambrills, Maryland. Also with us is Dave Pesh, Head of Surety at Munich Re in New York City. And kicking off the program today is another longtime contributor and former CFMA chair, Joe McLaughlin, who is CFO at Austin Industries in Dallas, Texas. Welcome to you all, and very happy that you're here with us today. I know there's a lot to cover in today's program, so without further delay, I'll turn things over to Joe to get us started.
Thanks, Sue. Good afternoon, everyone. Let me welcome you to the beginning of CCIFP month of August. My name is Joe McLaughlin. I'm the CFO of Austin Industries in Dallas, Texas. We're a 100% employee-owned contractor, performing about $3 billion in commercial, civil, and industrial construction and maintenance across the U.S. I'm proud to say that I currently have 10 CCIPs on my staff. This year, I've been given the privilege to chair the certification board for CFMA, and in 2018, I served as national chair of CFMA and have the president of the Dallas-Fort Worth chapter listed on my CFMA resume. Today, you're going to hear from 4 construction professionals. Each have been in the construction industry for some time, and all have earned their CCIFP certification. They will tell you their stories of how they achieved their certification, what motivated them to achieve their certification, and how the CCIFP designation has impacted them professionally. In addition, we're going to post a couple of polling questions for you to ask you your CFMA journey, where you are in your CFMA study process, and when you're planning to take the exam. So first, let me turn it over to Kimberly Holfish, if you would introduce yourself.
Hi, everyone. I hope you're having a terrific afternoon. It's nice and sunny here in South Jersey. As Joe said, my name is Kimberly Holfish. I've been a CCIFP since 2012. And I work for C. Abenizio Contractors in South Jersey. We do work primarily in New Jersey and Pennsylvania. And we're heavy highway and site work. So we do excavation and pipe work in industrial areas. We do heavy highway. We do casinos. And we have a little niche in landfills here in creating new cells. We've been a growing company. I've worked here since 2002. And we've grown a lot since then, which will be part of the story that I tell. And for CFMA, I've been a member since sometime around 2006, but I was going to meetings since 2002 when my CFO joined. And then they saw the value in having 2 employees be a member. But I've been involved with CFMA since then and involved in my local chapter, in my regional conferences, and on the national level as well. Thank you, Joe.
All right, next we have on the panel, Jose Parra. Introduce yourself, please, sir.
Sure. Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Jose Parra. I've been in the construction industry for over 20 years. The first 16 as part of the private sector, being at the contractor. I started as a job cost accountant all the way to a CFO level. And in 2016, I decided to move to the public side of the accounting. Currently, I am the accounting and advisory partner at RVG and Company. We're a CPA firm concentrated. One of the niches that we have is the construction industry. I've been part of CFMA since 2015, and I obtained my CCIFP certification in 2021. Being in the trenches, I've been I led a joint venture down in Miami that performed over $500 million project, as well as being in the back office, like I said, being in the accounting department all the way to the CFO level. enjoy, the construction industry. Like I said, currently I am in the public side for the last 6 years, pretty much helping a lot of my clients to become larger and understand better the how to mitigate the risk and plan budgeting, make sure they perform very well and be successful. Thank you, Joe.
Thanks, Jose. Next on the panel, we have Daniel Kurek. He's a CFO at Cheney Enterprises. Daniel, want to introduce yourself?
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you, Joe. Again, my name is Daniel Kurek. I'm CFO of Cheney Enterprises. We are based out of Maryland, but go from Delaware down to North Carolina. Around 1,000 employees. We are in construction, material, and supply. So we have sand and gravel mining and production, ready mix, and land development. We are, give or take, the third largest landowner in the state of Maryland, behind the U.S. federal government and the state of Maryland. So we do a lot of efficient and environmental friendly sand and gravel mining and concrete production. They hired me straight out of business school, and I went into the management training program, as we call it, which is 2 years of operational field work in the construction industry. So running concrete plants, running sand and gravel sites, running every piece of equipment we owned. Since then, we have expanded rapidly. But after 2 years, I spent 9 years working in the controller position. And I will get into later a lot of the benefits as to why I went the CCIFP route. I've been a member of CFMA for 2.5 years. I'm on the board of CFMA Maryland, which I'm very proud of our chapter, and I'm a big believer. So I look forward to talking here shortly.
Thanks, Daniel. And to add, a little bird told me that you were recently 40 under 40 for CFMA. So congratulations on that.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate it. I was proud of that.
Last but not least, Dave Pesh, Head of Security at Munich Re. Dave, want to give an introduction of yourself?
Yeah, thank you, Joe. Good afternoon, everyone, I guess it's afternoon everywhere. My name's Dave Pesh, as Joe said, Head of Surety at Munich Re Specialty Insurance. That's the primary insurance writing arm of Munich Re, one of the top global insurers and reinsurers on the planet. So we're kind of new to the surety space, and I've been putting Munich Re's bond department together, and we're up and running now and issuing bonds. For me, I've been a member of CFMA going back to the late 90s, originally in the New York City chapter, and then switched over to the North Jersey chapter, where I'm currently a member. I've been a CCIFP since 2012. Back in the day when you had to go take the exam in person on paper with a pencil and a calculator. So, interesting times back then of taking them mostly at CFMA regional conferences, which worked out for me. I had to go to Hershey, Pennsylvania to take the exam, but I've been involved with CFMA as a speaker at the national conference and at local levels, done a number of webinars for CFMA myself over the years, and also been very active with the Institute. I've been a board member, I've been on committees, and currently I am the vice chairman. So I take over next year after Joe's term, and looking very much forward to doing that. I will say that, I'm one of a limited number of people in the surety industry with the designation. My hope is that as we talk a little bit about the journey and our stories, anyone out there on the surety side will see the benefit as I do and look to take the exam. I'd love to get more surety underwriters and surety agents certified. So, Joe?
Great. Thanks. Well, I'm excited to serve on this panel. One thing, housekeeping, I'll throw out there that as we're going through this, if you guys have questions, want something to get to us by the end of the presentation, we have the chat feature. Please make sure you do that. Drop in your questions, and we'll kind of look at those and go through them as we can. So the first question here for the panelists, I'll throw it out to Kimberly. Tell us how certifications benefited your employer.
Well, thanks, Joe. And I just want to say, Dave Pesh, I took the exam with you there in Hershey. So yes, paper and pencil is interesting. So as I said, I work for C. Ebenezer Contractors, Inc., and I've worked here since 2002. And when I started here, we were about a $10 to $12 million annual revenue company. Within a couple years, we had doubled to 20 million. And now we do about 45 to 50 million a year. And this year we had the largest backlog we've ever had for the first time, going over 100 million to 106 million. The reason I tell you that is because at each size of the company, we had different needs. When we were a $10 to $12 million company, education with CFMA was great. It kept me up on things. But when we grew to 20 million and we had more public work than we ever had, I had to learn other things and grow the company and change the accounting system, change how we did payroll. And as you grow then to a $45 million company, again, you have to institute different accounting controls. You need to worry more about, you have more staff than you used to have in the accounting department, and how do you delegate and separate duties? And CFMA was a great help to that. And as we were growing around 2008, we decided that we were slowly starting to outgrow our accounting firm. They were a great accounting firm, but that's what happens as you grow. You outgrow some of your business partners and you don't want to leave them for any other reason. And we brought in a CPA firm that I had met through CFMA. And as we're interviewing them, they turned it around on me. And they started asking me, when do you plan on getting your CCIFP? We know you sat for an overview class, but you haven't taken the exam. When are you going to do it? It's something we really want our clients to have. And I started realizing how important the CCIFP might be to our business partners as we grew. And I'm not a CPA. I majored in finance and economics. I have an MBA with a focus in economics. And what I learned from this accounting firm was that it's especially good for people who aren't CPAs to show their dedication to the construction industry and their knowledge of the industry. And so I made a commitment to them that I would start studying for the CCIFP exam. And I was really nervous about taking the exam because I hadn't taken any exam, like a GMAT or anything, since 1990 something. That's not, years don't matter, right? So I was nervous about sitting for an exam for the first time in a long time. I had been out of school since the mid-90s as well, and studying. I hadn't had to study in a long time. So I know a lot of you are probably sitting there thinking the same thing. Maybe you didn't go to college at all, which is great. In this industry, it's normal. And, you know, the CCIP would be a great credential to add to your resume. And these exams scare you. Studying for the exam scares you. You're not the only one. It scared me. I was afraid that if I failed, my CPA firm would know I failed. And what would they think of me if I failed? Well, now I know those were stupid things to worry about. They're going to support you if you fail the first time. No big deal. You take it a second time. And they will support you. So when we were growing, I noticed I needed to get the CCIFP. Well, then we changed banks a couple years later. And at that point I had my CCIFP, and we're growing, and the bank is asking questions about how we're handling the growth and the financial part of the company and the accounting system. And my CCIFP had meaning to them. They knew it meant that I was on top of changes in the industry, that I had to have continuing education credits after I received my CCIFP. So I had to take the seminars I went to seriously. They saw me at CFMA. So they knew all about that, and the CCIP meant something to them. Now you fast forward a few more years, and we're doing about 30, 35 million a year, bidding larger jobs. That means our pre-qualifications have to be bigger and better. And again, the CCIP helped me learn so much during that growth period. And I was able to implement things in this company to help them grow and support the growth the owner wanted. The owner wanted to grow more. So we get to the point, he wants to bid 2 jobs. And it's the beginning of December. A few years ago, he wanted to bid 2 jobs. Both were worth between 80 and 100 million. Our limit for bonding was only about 100, 120 aggregate. And the bonding company was a little iffy on if they wanted us to go that far. And they said, tell you what, we're going to approve the first job. After that job bids, we'll decide the second job. Well, the owner said, well, that doesn't work. They bid 2 days apart. I have to be working on both these jobs simultaneously to get the right numbers. I need a commitment from you that you'll let me bid both jobs. No, we can't give that commitment. So he came into my office and he said, I don't care what you got to do. Time to change our bonding agent, time to change our bonding company. Again, we had outgrown them. So I'm not saying bad things about anybody. And you need to get this done. The job bids in 2 weeks. Well, how do you change your bonding company and your agent in 2 weeks? So I had a CFMA meeting that night, and I had been talking to a few surety agents about making a possible change, but with the understanding that the owners take time to change. They're very loyal to all their business partners. And so I knew I had to start the change, but I couldn't pull the trigger yet. And so I had 2 or 3 people lined up, and that they were all supposed to be at the CFMA meeting. And my CFO and I said, well, you go talk to this person, I'll go talk to this person and tell them what Peter said. And, you know, we need to do something and we have less than 2 weeks to do it. Well, only one of the surety agents ended up coming to that meeting. And after the CFMA meeting, we spent about 90 minutes talking to him about these 2 jobs and what's going on and how are we going to handle it. And he said, okay, I already have your financial statements, because we had already done that. We just told him he couldn't give them to anybody, but he had done an analysis on our financial statements. He said, on my way home, I'm going to call bonding company A and bonding company B, and I'm going to let them know what's going on. Great. Next thing you know, he calls us back 10 o'clock at night. Thursday morning, 10 a.m., can we do a meeting with bonding company A, which was really our first choice. And we said, absolutely. And we had that meeting. And during that meeting, they said to me, they had an underwriter there and the underwriter's boss, who was the decision maker, because they didn't want to have separate meetings and ask all the questions. So they started talking about the 3 C's: capacity, capital, and character. I'm sure you've all heard of that. Well, they then said to me, there's really kind of 4 C's. There's capacity, capital, and character, and CCIFP. And you have your CCIFP. And that tells us that your character, speaks highly of your character. You sign an ethics agreement every year, or an ethics pledge every year. We see you at CFMA. We see you talking with everybody. We see your character there. And that talks to your company's character, that they have someone handling all their books and everything that's like you. And, you know, because of that, we're ready to make a quick decision. Now, obviously, it wasn't just the CCIFP. Okay, obviously everything else had to be in order, but I was really kind of impressed that they knew so much about the CCIFP and said that that was such a huge part in their decision making when it comes to the character and capacity, because with capacity and I guess capital to a certain extent as well, they can rely on our financial statements, that they're accurate and that they're done on a GAAP basis, et cetera. So over the years, it's really helped our company grow. It's helped in our relationships with our business partners. It's helped me grow as a professional and understand what I need to do for a company that is growing. And it's become a very important part of my life. And I dedicate a lot of my time to this, I was going to say the Institute. It's not called that anymore. I apologize. I dedicate a lot of time to CCIFP at CFMA. And it really means a lot to me. And I love to see people like you attending this seminar with the interest in taking the exam. And I just want to add, and then I need to wrap up my story for the next person. Don't be afraid of it. I was afraid of it. And now I know that was really not a smart thing that I was afraid of it. There was no reason to be. And that's my story. I'll add one more thing before I pass it back to Joe. And I always forget about this because I don't want to like brag about it. But in 2020, Construction Business Owner had a Women in Construction of the Year. and I was in the top 9 that they chose. And when they called to tell me and they interviewed me for the article, one of the things they said that made me stand out from a lot of the other women was the CCIFP certification. And they were very interested in that. And they loved the idea of CCIFP and what it means to ethics and education and what you do for your company. And so I really think that part of me receiving that award was because I had my CCIFP and my dedication to it. So I hope to see everybody here take the exam, and you'll do great. I know you will. Joe, back to you.
Thanks, Kimberly. You know, as you were speaking, I wrote down one more thing here that I would tell you there's a 5th C there is confidence. It sounds like you got a lot of confidence, and they had a lot of confidence in you. So that was another C that I thought of.
Thank you.
And for the rest of the group, what I would say is that as you can see, Kimberly's passion. Not only did this story help her and help her company, but she's given back. I mean, Kimberly's been very involved in item writing, been involved in certification for quite some time, and we really appreciate the volunteers that get their certification and give back. So I do think that you, the more you put in, the more you get out. So thank you for what you do, Kimberly.
Thank you very much.
Next on the list, Jose Parra. I think he's got a good story for us as well. So let me turn it over to you, sir.
Perfect. Thank you, Joe. Like I mentioned before, I was part of the, I would say, private accounting sector for 16 years. And then the last 6 working on the public accounting side of it, of the steel construction accounting. Obviously, while I grew up, since, being a job cost accountant all the way to CFO, helping project managers running private and public, projects, led, the joint venture, did projects with PPP programs. So it gave me a lot of experience and a lot of exposure, to within the construction industry to the multiple sectors. But then, when I decided to, jump the fence to the public side of accounting in 2016, it was kind of hard to, talk to clients and talk to people, given, the whole history, expending 10, 15 minutes, talking about myself. By that time, you can lose track on the potential client or, the customer that you're trying to, gain as a client or provide, better services. So in 2020, I joined RBG, and RBG wanted to develop a niche in the construction industry. And that was basically my background and that I was bringing to the table. But again, I was challenged on, okay, how do we, become more, easy, to sell on the services on the background that we have. So I guess one of the commitments that I made to RBG, it was to get the CCIFP certification as part of me becoming a partner on the firm. I wasn't a partner before, but now I'm a partner at RBG and Company, and based, on the fact that I will get the certification plus obviously other, items. So being, I will say, the last 6 years or prior to me getting the certification, I was part of CFMA, gaining a lot of education, attending a lot of the webinars. But it was kind of like that extra step that I had to take, to become, the CCIFP. So at the end of 2020, we agreed among the partners, okay, this is going to be your challenge. This is what you need to do. And that's how in 2021, I decided to, step up, study, get ready for the test. I will say that the fact that you already had experience in the industry, it helped me a lot, because you got to get prepared. You got to study. I mean, this is, I wouldn't lie to you saying that this is an easy test. But again, if you know the industry, you know the terminologies, you know how to get ready. And actually in the end of 2020, beginning 2021, we were transitioning to ASC 606, which we all know, new revenue recognition. So the actual preparation for the CCIFP test helped me to complement my knowledge on the topic. I had to study, obviously learn more about the new revenue recognition and how that's going to impact the construction industry. So it facilitates for me to get ready for the test, as you know, the test is pretty heavy on revenue recognition and reporting on the financial statements. So I got the certification last year, and I will say since then, obviously, I accomplished one of the commitments that I made to my partners. I'm glad to say, I'm a certified partner of RBG. And again, even current clients or new potential clients, it makes the talk much easier just by knowing that we are certified. Because again, why will a person, look at you different than others, right? When you go to a doctor, for example, if you need to a dentist, you're not going to go to a regular doctor, right? So if you need somebody to help you with, construction, accounting, finance, why would you go to a certified person, in the industry? So I think that's helping a lot as far as at least getting, clients, and with the current clients, giving them that trust or gaining a bigger trust on the firm, not only on me, but at the end of the day, on the whole team that, belongs to our firm. At the same time, that allowed me to now become part of the board of directors of the South Florida chapter of CFMA. That way, I'm willing, to put my time and go out there to help CFMA and CCIFP Institute to gain more members. We're looking. I see as I touch multiple, clients at the same time and interact with a lot of CPA firms in the industry, we see that there is a big lack of construction accounting staff or team members. Definitely having the CCIFP will benefit a lot of those people that is willing to jump on or join the construction industry. And I want to clarify that this certification is not just for accounting and finance people. Project managers, project executives, project coordinators will benefit a lot by gaining this certification. Like I said before, I've been in a project for 4 years leading a joint venture, and you need to know a lot of bonding, you need to know a lot of risk management, you need to know a lot of how to prepare financial statements, and you should not depend only on the controller or CFO person, to do so. Obviously, you want to grow, you want to gain more knowledge. This is going to be a really good way to do it, really good way to get certified, so you develop the trust on the company and the people surround you. And at the same time, it's going to be for with you forever. So long you maintain your CPEs up to date, you will have that certification forever and ever. So it's something that you're going to gain and you're going to continue to utilize all your life. And again, it's not just for accounting people. I think this is a good clarification to make, that I have seen a lot of project managers that want to become project executive in large projects, and the lack of budgeting or bonding or in this understanding risk management policies, it creates a rocks in their pathway. So that certification is going to help you, starting getting ready for it. It's going to help you to bring the knowledge to the table and become, successful in your career. So, Joe, back to you.
Jose, let me ask you this. Not only, it's made you successful, but has it brought success to your firm? I mean, it's probably brought some credibility and potential additional business to your firm by you holding that certification within that group.
Sure. Yes, that's for sure. It has created, like I said, it builds more trust. The moment that the clients know that we're certified, again, it gives the trust that somebody else checked on the knowledge that we have, and that we are, capable of being trained, to perform the advisory or, serve whatever services they're looking for from us.
Sure. No, great. We're going to shift to a polling question. Sue, if you would put that polling question up on the screen. Hopefully I can, let me know when it's on there. All right, polling question number 1. what is your biggest hurdle in taking the exam? A, time, B, cost, C, knowledge, or D, fill in the answer. I don't know if we have Jeopardy music for this, but if everyone would take the polling quiz here right before we get into Daniel. So it looks like 65% is time, knowledge 17%, D is fill in the answers. We'll go look for those, and then cost. Well, I've got the panel, and before we go to Daniel and Dave, does any one of our panelists want to have a comment or about the time, or have a suggestion of how to make your time more efficient when studying for the exam?
I think I'll comment real quick. You know, I've mentored one or two people recently who wanted to take the exam, and you know, in today's day and age, there are a lot of additional resources available that weren't there back when I took the exam, and mostly through CFMA. I mean, CFMA has great resources, including study groups, including you know, the online areas, the test, the practice exams, the you know, all of the resources that are available there. And while they do take some time, it's certainly not as bad as it used to be in trying to find the resources and thus having to be on your own. I mean, there's you know, you'll find out more throughout this month about all of the resources that are available to everyone that wants to take the exam or is considering taking the exam. So, you know, I think time, you do have to put time in, but it's easier to make that time today because of the resources that CFMA has.
Daniel, did you have an add to that?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, it's part of what I was going to talk about, but sure. I mean, I think that when it comes down to it, you know, all of us are here for a reason, and we all have busy careers and families and the like, and we all made it through. So we're living testament to the fact that it is doable. Nothing good comes free, obviously. But remember, it's, you know, the thing I would say that's most important is when you come out of this, and I was going to get into it in my section, when you come out of it, you're coming out of it with a lot more than just certification. You are going to learn a lot. There's just no doubt about it. And then additionally, I would say rest assured, because there's so many resources, as David said, when it comes to study groups, when it comes to the different areas they have. I don't know if they still use it, but I know I used Quizlet to death, virtual flashcards. Reaching out to other CCIFPs that had already passed was huge. Every one of them was extremely welcoming. I probably bothered them more than I should have, but not once did anyone push back. They were more than helpful. We're a very warm community, and we know what you're going through, and we are all, from what I can understand, like they just talked about, Kimberly putting her time in and with exam questions and all these different committees. She's doing that for a reason, as I do, and we believe in it, and we know that everyone on here can definitely do it, and it's not a burden you can't overcome, and it's well worth the effort.
Great comment there, Daniel. Why don't you continue on with your segment there?
So you're getting into, when it comes to benefits and things. I mean, I guess the easiest transition I could do is, talking with my experience of kind of why did it. I took mine in July of 20, and as everyone knows, that is a very, very unique time, and that we were going through a lot of different things with COVID and et cetera. But I found myself for that time, I kind of guessed that it was not going to be a short ordeal or opportunity. Professionally, I got hired straight out of business school with the goal of getting the big chair in the CFO role. I knew that when they hired me at 24 that I had some work cut out for me. But the reality is that I knew what I wanted. So throughout my learning experience, the one missing piece, similar to Kimberly, I didn't go the CPA route. I'm more the finance side. My MBA side was more focused on, money forward instead of the accounting side looking backwards. And that was my passion. So I knew that there were things to overcome. And I just said to myself, what's the missing piece? I had the education, I had the background that could get me into that role. But the things that were working against me, one of them was I wanted to make sure I had that justification. And this certification was really the avenue. At that time, I said, man, this is really kind of tailor-made for me. I had a small window, about a year and a half or a year or so before the person that was in the job for 20 years was retiring, and it was going up for bid. And so I tried to find differentiators to differentiate myself because I had a tough hill to climb. I was internal, but with our revenue size, and when you start pushing $1 billion in sales, generally those people, that they have a little bit more tenure than a 38-year-old has, because $1 billion that's a lot of money. And so I had the competition was very high. So I wanted to see what could I do to really differentiate myself. And this is what I thought was the best avenue. I think what scared me was I was a little worried, as Kimberly said, about, time. And, to put that into perspective on people that can do it, I don't know what other people's scenarios are, but mine, I did mine at the time of having 3 kids under 6. I also, at the same time as starting this program, I took a flyer and applied to the 3 business schools that were my dream. And one of them I got into, and I started at the exact same time. So I started going back for a graduate degree at Harvard at the same time as I started this. I finished them both within 6 months of each other. But I had, 2 kids, one coming out of diapers, one in diapers, and one about 2 years from potty training at the same time as this, and the same time as traveling up and back from Cambridge at the same time every other weekend. So I had a lot. So it is doable. There's no doubt about it. It just takes time, but you're going to get out of it way more than anyone else will. I was very thrilled with the resources. I called Veronica all the time, and her team was very, very willing. But it's a big community, and so it helps. I thought for me, the big benefit that the company got from my perspective was the former CFO role was only accounting. And then the new role, we had a new CEO, and he had a lot of vision for as to what he wanted changed. And part of the new CFO job, it added IT, HR, and legal all under the CFO for the first time in our company's 60-year history. So, to me, I read that and said, this thing is pretty much tailor-made for me, both on a professional standpoint and timing and on a subject matter standpoint. So I looked at that as a huge positive. And as a result of it, getting the job, there's no way I would have gotten it without this. I think that it was, how do I perform and use that knowledge base and justification to benefit the company? We deal a lot with banks and external auditors, and our tax returns, multi-million dollars. And when you're in that room, you need to have the weight of certain things. And for me, that was the missing piece. And so this really put me over the edge. I think learning from an IT perspective, we're going into an area where we specifically are looking at new ERP systems, and it's a benefit to both myself and the company to have that knowledge of spending that time on Chapter 17 and learning what the definitions are and the guidance the book gives you. We really applied that. And then you never want to change your ERP. Some people only do it once in their career. Ours was 20 years old. So, it was a huge advantage to having that basis, and it was all a result of learning. I think the things that, when we look at what it means to you and what it means to a person on that wants to take them to the next level, this certification carries a lot of weight. It really does. It is a certification specifically for people that have a passion for the construction industry, which I do. And it gives you that justification. We had an audit where we were audited for sales tax. And one of the things in our sales tax was whether or not iPads and trucks were part of production. And so an accountant could come in and kind of say, well, production is, you're manufacturing, you're not taxable. But to have the ability to say, well, hold on, in construction, the raw material, the end sale is here. I knew what it meant. I could go to that state auditor and explain to them why this was not a sales taxable item. And having that justification to say, hey, I'm certified in this. this is the construction industry. This is what I do. I'm not a sales tax financial professional. I'm a construction industry financial professional. That carried some weight. And we ended up winning that, not just because of that, but it did carry weight. It certainly helped. One thing to think that we were talking about earlier, I mean, we can't ignore the fact, at least to me, and I'm sure to others, and I've been on calls with Kimberly well enough to know that I can assure you she probably feels the same way, but the study process is fun. It's enjoyable. When I got done, I almost missed it. You create a routine, and family kind of matters. I studied and did flashcards with my 9-year-olds making eggs, and he got into it. When I got an 89%, he'd say, "Ooh, even I remember that one." You have to make it more than what it is because it's worth it. But it is fun. It's an enjoyable experience. And going back to how the company benefited, it kind of fell on the lines of, we had 20 years of kind of the same, and we wanted to bring in fresh ideas. And the only way to get fresh ideas is to kind of get, people that specialize in it and get new ideas. And when you study things, naturally, every time you read a chapter, in the back of your mind, it gives you hours and hours and hours and hours of learning that, just consciously you're thinking to yourself, oh, that could apply here. Or, oh, you know what, we go through that. Or when you're reading about legal, you're like, oh, I have that issue. And when I have HR issues, I go back to the book. I keep it here for a reason, because those things still apply. And so that experience that you're going to have in going through that, it's a constant benefit. It's constantly evolving, not to mention the fact that anyone that's involved with CFMA will be able to tell you that the continual education, including this, that platform is massive. It is constant. This certification is the real deal. If you want to prove it, well, then you go take your CPEs because you're going to need them. And this is not something like a real estate tax exam, which might be strenuous. I have no idea, but this has additional requirements, just like a CPA does. It is just different. It's just a different kind of thing. And they're both very, very, very heavy. But for me, it was, how do I apply it? And the big benefit was, how does it benefit the company? Well, every minute I was studying, and the hundreds and hundreds of hours that I studied, every minute of that was applying every single word to how it could improve, how could I implement. Because selfishly, I was saying, I'm having a pretty darn big job, and I need to deliver. And part of delivering is coming up with effective change and educated change. And so that process of constantly applying this to what you do every day, both in the future and from what you learn, is kind of invaluable. And then personally, it was a huge benefit. The top 40 under 40 thing doesn't happen without this, period. The job doesn't happen without this. So, I tell Veronica all the time, it's like, well, you want a textbook of how this can be a benefit, you can use me, because it is. It carries its weight in gold, and we all believe in it, both for what you get and for what you continue to get. But going through the process, you are going to bring your company extremely valuable growth and gain and change and knowledge, and it's worth it for you and for your company. But you are all starting on something that will absolutely be worth it.
Dana, I couldn't say it any better. Some of the things you talked about, expanded role, you talked about being well-rounded, opens your eyes, and again, another person following Jose's and Kimberly's of company value, company benefit. It's one of those things that I don't think people can kind of see what really that job of that construction professional, what they're really responsible for, and what those areas of their businesses are. And you guys are doing a great job explaining that to everybody here. It's exciting to see 300 participants on the call. I know some of them are CCIFPs, but hopefully those that are working on the exam can actually see the passion, the panel has so far. We've got one more to go, Dave, but a lot of passion and a lot of belief in what this can not only do for themselves, but their company and their career to move them forward. So Dave, let's turn it over to you on your story.
Great, thanks, Joe. So I think I'll start first with kind of my journey. It's a little different as a long time member of CFMA and the attending conferences 20 or more times, been at the annual conference. I knew about the CCIFP designation all the way back to its beginnings, and have a number of friends and associates in the CFMA that were, well, I'll call the creators of the designation, and some of them carry the single-digit certificate numbers. And one night at dinner at a national conference, one of them, who happened to be a CPA, turned to me and said, I know you know a lot more about accounting than most of the underwriters that I have to deal with because of our association together over the years. And he said, so, why don't you take the exam? Why don't you get the designation? It's not just for accountants and CFOs. It has so much more value to anyone. And this individual really, and I echo the sentiment now of, especially a contract surety underwriter. And so, I took the challenge and went back and started to prepare myself to take the exam. I purchased the book like everyone else back in the day. There wasn't the online resources that are available today. I attended an overview course down in Philadelphia, just outside of Philadelphia, for 2 days, which I think was invaluable for me. I set myself kind of a schedule of, I want to do this section by this point in time, and I want to do this area by this point in time. When I didn't understand something or had a question about something, I set up resources of people I could go to, mostly CPAs, to be perfectly honest with you, because it was the accounting and tax side that was probably the most difficult for me. But to go in and say, okay, explain this to me. I know what it is, but now I need to know exactly how to calculate it to be able to, sit there with, as I said earlier, with a piece of a pencil, a piece of paper, and a calculator, a basic 9-function calculator, and come up with the correct answer for this. It was invaluable to me. It taught me something, as I went through it. And as Kim said, we were in the same auditorium together out there in Hershey. I finished the exam. Back then, you had 4 hours to take the exam. At the 3.5-hour mark, you could turn in your exam and leave the hall, or you were locked in until the 4-hour mark. If you finished it before 3.5, you could leave. And I got through the exam. I got to the 4.5-hour mark, or 3.5-hour mark, excuse me. And I said, you know what? I'm done. I'm gonna turn this in. I feel very confident, and I'm gonna go wait outside for others to come out at the end of the exam. What I found was that growing up in the surety business, before there were, before there were computer programs to calculate your work in process schedule calculations and do verifications on financial statements and recomputing percentage of completion accounting, and having to have done that early in my career on paper, not on computers, actually helped me a ton. It's a piece of advice I would give to anyone that's out there that's considering the exam, which is, look, it's easy to calculate the percentage of completion, the revenue earned, and the over and under billings of a project on Excel. But you don't get to use Excel when you're taking the exam. So by all means, as part of your study, and again, it was so helpful to me, put the computer away, find a calculator. I'll bet there's one in your kitchen drawer somewhere. Find a 9-function calculator and a piece of paper, and sit down and do these calculations by hand. You can verify them later, but invaluable to be able to do those calculations, especially when you start dealing with some of the intricacies of 606 these days, stored materials and things like that. Very beneficial. So I took the exam and was happy to say that I passed the exam on the first try. And then that started my path for the CCIFP. And being on the certification board and being part of the designation for years. But I have an interesting story to tell because, the designation itself, the continuing ed that I took over the first number of years taught me a lot of things I didn't know as a surety underwriter of what Kimberly does all day, every day, and how you get from point A to point B and how to recognize quality internal financial reporting against maybe not so quality internal financial reporting. So I was submitted a piece of business in the Southeast Territory. It was a concrete forming, structural concrete contractor and some miscellaneous concrete subcontractor. They were looking for a bond of about $2.7, $2.8 million. Bond request came in April, so their year-end CPA review had just been completed. The numbers looked good. The review came from a CPA firm that had a good reputation. They had a construction-oriented division, so we knew that the CPA firm knew what they were doing. We're getting towards the end of April, so I asked for an internal financial statement because we were told that they had a capability of producing internal financials, and I got a March 31st financial statement. The first thing that struck me when it came in was it was clearly on QuickBooks. It was not anything more or less. When it came in, I could tell right off the bat that it was not a percentage of completion financial statement. It had over and under billings as line items in it, but the over and under billings were the exact same numbers as they were on the CPA's year-end financial statement. When I looked at the revenue, when I looked at the WIP schedule that I received, I looked at the revenue, I looked at the profitability, it struck me right off the bat of, well, those don't look right. So I took my knowledge of calculating percentage of completion and, I have my WIP schedule analysis put together, and I was able to recreate March 31st on a percentage of completion basis as best I could. And I was pretty accurate with it, as I found in the end. But utilizing that knowledge that I had, that capability that I had, I was able to underwrite it. I was able to see what the percentage of completion looked like at the end of Q1 and compared to the end of the year, the prior end of the fiscal year. And that helped me to support the bond. Wrote the $2.9 million bond. And as is the case many times with subcontractors, you don't see another bond request for maybe a few months. September rolled around and the next bond request came in, was in the area of $6 to $7 million. Now, needless to say, I wasn't going to rely on a March financial statement, so I asked for an updated financial statement, and I was given one dated July 31st. They said that was the last month-end close they had completed. It was very early September. They hadn't gone through their August month-end close process. Something I learned, again, being a CCIFP, the difference between a financial statement that's gone through the month-end close process and somebody hitting print the financial statement in the middle of the month, where you're just getting that snapshot in time general ledger balances. That statement came in, and again, it was not on a percentage of completion basis, but it just seemed like there was something wrong. All the cash was gone. The bank debt was way up. The receivable to payable ratios went way out of whack. Yet I had a P&L statement indicating substantial profitability and a significant increase in the equity being shown on that statement. Well, as we all know, QuickBooks is just straight accrual, and it didn't take long to dig in and realize they had substantially overbilled a couple of jobs, which shot up revenue as billings. The profitability was not profitability. They were actually losing a substantial amount of money on a percentage of completion basis, and it was time to ask a whole bunch of questions on that bond request. Long and short of it is, the answers to the questions were essentially, we don't know, no, we think it's right, We haven't closed our books for the next month. We'll get that caught up. Where do you stand on the bond request? Which obviously, we turned around and said, look, you got to get your CPA to come back in and do a June 30th or a July 31st statement for you, even if it's on a comp basis, but they need to look over these books. Otherwise, we can't support the bond. Now, once I started getting a little squirrely on the bond, as Kim mentioned in her story, I mean, that's what we do. We have to go through our analysis. The bonding agent took that bond request to another surety company. That surety company took the financial statements they were looking at face value as being accurate because they were financial statements provided by the contractor. In the end, I declined to support the bond. That particular company supported that bond. They actually ended up supporting another bond a few months later. I had asked for, to continue to get financial information to monitor the bond that I had written. And as the time went on, this thing continued to get worse and worse and worse, to where I was able to bring our claims department in early. There was no default. There was no claim on our bond. There was no payment bond claims, but it became abundantly clear that there were substantial cash flow issues at this company, and the new projects were not helping. They were actually hurting because, again, concrete is a huge labor component. And so you're making payroll before you get paid. In the end, this company ended up filing Chapter 7 very quickly. It cost the bank 7 figures for the revolver and some other loans that the bank had made to them. It cost the other bonding company in the area of $5 million. May have been a little more by the time it shook out. For me, I had about $29,000 worth of work at the end of the project that was just patchwork on some of the miscellaneous concrete, and about $200,000 in bills to pay for unpaid suppliers on the project. So I did suffer a small loss, but in the end, a very small loss in relation. So, the moral of the story is, to me, was that I had learned so much about what it takes to produce an accurate financial statement for a construction company, to then be able to utilize that knowledge and say, you know what, this one's not accurate. As surety underwriters, we get everything you can imagine under the sun as a financial statement. As I said, I've received June 17th, 2022 financial statement and told, here's the financial statement. They're making $1 million. Can you now write the bond? And have to explain to people, that's not a financial statement. And I won't accept it. I've written white papers on it for the underwriters that work to me. We will not accept that information, and explain why. So, anyone out there in the surety world that's thinking about this designation, I assure you it carries its weight. I can also tell you that as I travel around the country and I meet with contractors and I meet with their CFOs, and they see the CCIFP designation, there's always a comment of, oh, wow, I don't see too many surety people with that designation. That's correct. You don't. We're gonna work on that. I hope to get as much of the contract surety industry to get the designation as possible over the coming years. But from the CFOs that I talk to, them, they say, well, we don't expect any dumb questions from you. You're a CCIFP. We expect you to be able to interpret more because we know you've gone through the learnings that we've gone through. Most of the CFOs that I meet that talk about this are CCIFPs themselves, so they know what we've gone through. So, and I think it carries a lot of weight. I think for bonding agents too, it can carry a lot of weight as primary direct advisors to your clients. Having this body of knowledge and being that intermediary and being able to better explain what's going on by between getting the answer from the CFO and sending that to your surety underwriters, it's going to carry a lot of weight. It's going to carry a lot of weight with the underwriters who are out there. So That's my story, Joe. It was a huge benefit. Anytime you can save $5+ million for your company in a paid claim, the designation paid for itself in spades on that one situation alone.
Dave, I appreciate that story. I know getting the sureties more involved in the designation has been an extreme passion of yours that I know within the next year. Definitely will be part of your campaign next year. It's exciting to see in the chat as I was looking through here that there are some sureties on that are echoing exactly what you say. So
Yes.
Again, not only is this benefiting you, but benefiting companies and people that you serve. So that's great.
Yeah.
We're gonna turn it over to a little bit of the Q&A. Michael Spencer, looks like you're taking it Tuesday, the exam Tuesday. I've been following the chat here, so good luck on that. But Jose, I'm going to have you take this one. There's a wealth of information in the book and references. It's actually very impressive. Do you find yourself referring back to it on a regular basis in your job since passing the CCIFP?
Yes, definitely. I use it a lot. One of the services that we offer at my firm is called Controller or CFO Virtual. So basically, we are kind of like part-time controllers or CFO of multiple construction companies. So sometimes we get the challenge from owners or external CPAs performing the audits or the reviews in reference to how financial statements or footnotes needs to be presented. The books refer that, so you can take a look at that really quick. Also, the percentage of completion, is very black and white, how it needs to be calculated. So I use that as a tool and kind of like a backup. Sometime when there is accounting personnel within my clients or even owners of the companies that I work with, how to explain them how the percentage of completion works. So definitely, yes, I agree with you. There is a lot of material that you can refer back. I mainly use it for that percentage of completion, I would say, and footnotes, what needs to be included in the financial statements. That so far has been my main usage of the book.
Great answer there. I'm gonna pull an audible here. Kimberly, I'm gonna give you this next one. What is an average or appropriate time frame for studying to take the exam? I'm taking the Mid-Atlantic Regional Conference Day 2 review course as well. Thank you.
Okay, so I studied about 4 hours, 5 hours a week, starting in April until the test was at the end of September. But I think to gauge the real appropriate time, I like the idea of taking the class first, and that's not always doable, but when you take the class first, you can see what you don't know and kind of take the outline and say, I don't have to spend as much time studying percentage of completion. I got that under control, but the stored materials part, that's tough. I need to spend more time on that. So I think the review course helps with that. I think making note cards as you go along so that you can I would spend like an hour a week just reviewing what I already studied before I would start studying something new. And the review cards helped with doing that. But it's all in what you think you already know as well. I think one of the things you can get tripped up on is what we do in reality versus what the book says you do. Be very cautious of that. I think there was a part of a question I'm just going to hit for 2 seconds here. Is the book available on audio? And I know the general answer is no. But if you get the electronic version for Kindle, I do believe that Kindle will read you the book, but it will skip the charts and everything. So just my 2 cents there.
Didn't know that. That's great. Another one here. I'm going to throw this one to you, Daniel. What is the first thing that you suggest we do to prepare for the CCIFP? Very first thing.
Ooh, okay. I would probably say that one of the bigger benefits is going to be setting up your community of learning, as I would kind of call it on a whim. I would say study groups, huge. Get yourself lined up with the getting the totality of resources that you're going to use will be the first step. It's, study groups is the low-hanging fruit. I'd reach out to others and ask what worked for them. So you kind of got your game plan as to how you're going to do this. Scheduling, this is not just you, your family's involved, kind of getting that commitment, but it's really getting geared up for the race ahead of you, so that you have all of your tools in the toolbox and you're not, through accounting reporting and on RevRec and, oh shoot, I wish I had this back then. It's kind of lining up your resources and tools first would probably be what I would start, because there's so many resources. Calling Veronica like I did 87 times and saying, who can I talk to? Here's my question. She'll pass, I don't want to speak for her, but she'll pass on questions. at least she did for me. And she'll say, oh, you know what? She knows Kimberly and she knows David and she knows Jose. They're good at that. I remember writing a question with Kimberly. I'll send it to her. And what Kimberly will do is, pass it on or answer it. So getting your tools lined up for your study toolbox would probably be what I would think is best, including reaching out to others, because that is huge.
No, great, good answer. Let's see. I'm going to stick with some questions because a lot of questions have just come in, and we're going to try to hit as many of these as we can. How does the CPA exam compare to the challenge of passing the CPA exam? And then there's another one here. Does the CPE requirement overlap with CPA requirements? I would say this, they're both challenging. I would say preparing for the exams, as you've heard from most people here, is you learn a heck of a lot about what you do or what you should know. A whole lot of things that you may not have thought of that you should be responsible for in taking the CCIFP, from bonding, from insurance. The HR section, I think, is really good as we all get into HR issues. Daniel mentioned technology. And then to answer about the CPE, yeah, they both do overlap. You can utilize a lot of CPE that, by attending the annual conference, getting CPE for both, not only the CCIFP exam, but for the CPA designation as well. So I think it can be utilized for both. One question, a couple here on, I'm going to throw this out to Veronica. You're on this, I see you still on there maybe. You can, the cost and beginning the process. Do you want to talk a second about how much does it cost and what's the sign-up process?
So the initial cost for the exam itself is $850. So if you're purchasing the book or study materials, those are additional costs. The process is super easy. You can always reach out to me or our certification coordinator, Taniqua Rashada, or go to our website, www.iccifp.org, which is still up for the time being. We're working on merging the two websites, which will be done very soon. And just click on the apply here and log in, and it'll just take you through the application process with your education and your work experience. And within a day or so after applying, you'll get your authorization, and then you can go ahead and schedule your exam.
No, great overview there, Veronica. Let's find another question here. I'm going to throw this out to the panel. This one says, so what is the best place that you've looked for your study material? That's kind of a generic. I'm combining about 4 questions here, but does anyone want to comment on what is the best place that they utilized in study material and what helped them the most?
Well, I think the book is absolutely your number one resource. And if cost is an issue for the book, I would ask your CPA firm to see if they have any that you can borrow. They're a great resource of information. The AICPA Construction Audit Guide is really thorough and good. And again, if that comes out electronically only now, and if I think it's like $100 for non-members of AICPA. And again, that might be a resource that you could borrow from your CPA. The study guide from the CFMA store, which if you take the CFMA overview course at Mid-Atlantic, you also get the study guide as part of that. And then online, there's various resources for construction. You just want to stick to non-editorial type articles, more factual articles. Joe, back to you.
No, that's great. And you know what I would add to also on the book, I think the book is a great material. I'm still old school. I have the actually printed copies on my bookshelf over here. And I think that's a great way. It looks overwhelming when you get it, but theoretically, if you took the years and years of the folks that have put into writing the book, it literally is a working tool to teach you how to run a construction company from the beginning to the end, from setting up a GL code, setting up budgets, understanding insurance technology and such. So that is something that, you know, not only can you carry going forward, but that's one of the better things to study in my opinion. There's one more question here. All right, I'm going to ask this question to you guys. How many of you guys passed it on the first time? Raise your hand.
It's not uncommon though to not pass it on the first time, and don't feel ashamed or scared if you don't. Just take it again.
Yeah, I think that's a good comment. I know that there's a lot of folks that you know, you may want to take it to make sure to see what you need to do, and then turn right around and retake it. I think a lot of people,
that's what I did.
The quicker they can get back in the saddle, you know, you've spent a lot of time. I think there's a 30-day waiting period before you can take the exam again. The exams, I'm going to let you talk T&Cs here, Veronica, but how often can you take the exam, and how often is it offered?
So the exam right now is kind of open enrollment. We don't have testing windows as some other organizations do. So when you apply, I would say be pretty confident that you're ready to sit for the exam. So you have a maximum of 90 days to take the exam from the time of application. We do offer another modality now, live remote proctor, where you can take the exam at home. That deadline is shorter, so you have about 2 weeks from the time of your application to take the exam. So I always recommend to people that, you know, you have a date in mind, you have a goal, you have, you know, your mindset ready when you apply. When you apply is not really the time to studying. You should really be in your review process at that time. And the cost of the exam is $850. If you are not successful on the first attempt, the retake fee is $300, although for the month of August, we are offering an amnesty for those who have not been successful in their first or second attempt and can retake the exam in the month of August for free. There is a 2-week waiting period. So if you don't pass on the first attempt, you will be blocked out of completing your application for another 2 weeks, and then you can go ahead and reapply and take the exam after that point.
Thanks, Veronica. I'm going to conclude. We've got 12 seconds left in this video. Sue, if you could put that very last slide of CCIFP month on there so we can get a quick shot of it. Thanks to the panel. Thanks to everybody for participating. It's been great, and do appreciate everyone's interest in taking the exam, and good luck. Thank you very much.
Good luck, everybody.
Everyone. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, great. Oh, thanks so much to our panelists and our moderator for participating in today's program. We loved hearing your stories, and also the passion of the panelists was fantastic. Thanks again for joining us, and have a great rest of your day.